DeWanna Bonner in the hot seat after saying what she stated last night in her press conference, man. I can't lie, it does look like some hypocrisy going on.
DeWanna Bonner continues to take shots at the Indiana Fever and the Fever fans. I think it's absolutely disgusting.
The sheer gall of some people is truly mind-blowing. But DeWanna Bonner just set a new bar for delusion. In a jaw-dropping ESPN interview, she had the nerve to say, "I wouldn't change a thing." This is after essentially scamming $200,000 from the Indiana Fever and their loyal fan base. She inked a deal, cashed checks for months, then conveniently vanished for 5 games with vague, personal reasons, only to orchestrate her exit from the team. And now she's parked in Phoenix playing the victim, pretending like she was the one mistreated. Seriously?
I wouldn't do anything differently. I think my journey is my journey and I'm going to accept that. It carried me to where I am in Phoenix and it happened that way for a reason. I mean, really, that is a wild statement.
You stole that money from Indiana. You signed up for that bread and didn't deliver. You didn't show up for work. You made up bullcrap excuses to not be at work.
That kind of arrogance takes your breath away, especially when you remember how Fever fans welcomed her with open arms and treated her like royalty. All the while, she was scheming behind the scenes to get out. If this whole situation leaves you as stunned and disappointed as the rest of us, smash that like button and drop a "Investigate Bonner" in the comments. Because what we're about to lay out will expose exactly how this betrayal unfolded, step by step.
She came over here, she signed a max contract, she knew Phoenix didn't have the bread, she got 80 here and went and got the rest over there. I think it's trash.
I wouldn't do anything differently. You took 80 grand from the Indiana Fever. You could have just signed. Like, that's one of the things, like, I don't understand why you take these interviews. I don't understand why someone would take an interview and say that, when the reality is that all you did was took a whole bunch of money from a team to not show up.
Bonner's comments don't just miss the mark. They're a slap in the face to every single fan who poured their money, energy, and heart into backing her. For her to sit on national television and act like she didn't do anything wrong, after taking that money and refusing to hold up her end of the bargain, speaks volumes about her integrity, or the lack of it.
You refuse to show up to work while receiving money, while taking payment. You refuse to show up and do the job. And let's be clear, you wasn't even good while you was here. You was shooting threes hitting the side of the backboard.
But this is definitely going to be a part of her history, man. Because the new wave is taking over. These new fans are watching. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's going to be a part of her history, unfortunately, man.
At this point, it's not even about basketball. This is a question of professionalism and basic respect. People buy tickets, jerseys, and support the franchise because they believe players will show up and do the work. Bonner's time in Indy wasn't some soul-searching journey. It was a calculated cash grab that ended with fans and the franchise feeling duped and abandoned by someone they believed in.
This is DeWanna Bonner. I wouldn't do anything differently. I think my journey is my journey. I'm going to accept that. It carried me to where I am now in Phoenix, and it happened that way for a reason. It didn't happen that way for a reason. You forced yourself out of Indiana, DeWanna.
But here's where it gets even more infuriating. Once you start peeling back the layers and looking at how everything really played out, it reveals a bigger issue with how professional contracts are handled these days and how some athletes are getting way too comfortable skating by without accountability. Let's begin with the most damning evidence: the massive gap between what Bonner promised and what she actually delivered after signing that big money deal.
I just don't understand this. I don't understand why DeWanna Bonner is taking these interviews at this point in time. Because I'm like, look, you're in Phoenix. You've got what you wanted. You've got what everyone expected you wanted all along. Everything's gone your way. Indiana haters are going to love you because you screwed over the Fever. They're going to love you because you screwed over the Fever. Phoenix Mercury fans are going to love you. Rival fans are going to love you because you basically screwed over the Fever. Fever fans are going to hate you because you screwed over the Fever.
We're talking about a veteran who averaged an embarrassing 7.1 points per game while putting up bricks and jogging around like she couldn't care less. This wasn't a matter of someone struggling to find their form. This was a player mailing it in, biding her time, waiting for the right moment to bolt. She only started 3 out of the 9 games she even bothered to attend. That right there tells you how little she was contributing, even when she was technically available. The numbers don't lie, and they paint a picture of someone completely checked out. Her 3.8 rebounds and 1.6 assists per game were laughable, bench player stats at best, Not what you expect from a veteran free agent who was supposed to bring stability and leadership to a young, hungry team. She wasn't just disappointing, she was invisible.
First of all, the fans are the victim. The organization was the victim here. Like, why are we sitting here, she up in these articles like she was a victim, like she did, like something was done wrong? No, the fans are a victim. They welcome you with open arms. They embraced you, and you turned your back and you quit. It's that simple. You quit. You refused to show up to work. You wasn't hurt. You wasn't sick. It wasn't a personal fit. No, you just didn't want to be on the team no more.
And yet, despite the lackluster performance, Fever fans showed patience. They hoped she'd turn it around. They gave her the benefit of the doubt. But instead of using that goodwill to fuel a comeback, Bonner apparently decided that it wasn't worth the effort. So she stopped trying. The Fever front office had structured the roster and salary cap around the expectation that she'd play a key role, and she repaid them by ghosting when things didn't go her way. It's a manipulative move, one that sends the wrong message to every other player in the league. If you don't like your role, just tank your effort until you get your way. Now, here's the part that really sets off every Indiana Fever fan who's been paying attention. The second Bonner threw on that Phoenix Mercury jersey, she magically reappeared as the player we all thought we were getting. Suddenly, she's dropping 22 points and 11 rebounds like it's nothing in just her second game with her new team. Funny how that works, isn't it?
You came here, you stunk it up, and then you got benched. Just because you was okay with coming off the bench in another situation don't mean you was okay with coming off the bench in this situation. So I want to know what's the real? What's the real? Because you can't say while you was here, you said, "Oh, I've never played in front of this many fans." You were embraced by the fans. You spoke highly of the fans while you were here. You were a starter, but you wasn't playing well. And that was nobody else's fault that you was shooting threes, hitting the side of the backboard, and you was smoking layups. And then your starting spot got took, and then all of a sudden you refused to show up to work.
This isn't about a better system or finding her rhythm. This is proof that Bonner was sandbagging her time in Indiana. She had that fire all along, but she chose to suppress it until she could play where she wanted, alongside her fiancée, Alyssa Thomas. That dramatic leap in production isn't just suspicious, it's a dead giveaway. Even casual fans could see through it. Her performance in Phoenix was like a confession. She could have helped the Fever, she just didn't want to.
And if we gonna keep it real, Chloe Bibby, the new 7-day signee, has fit in and played better than DeWanna Bonner did anyway. Let's be clear here. Chloe Bibby came in first game, knocked down 2 threes. DeWanna Bonner first game versus the gum on the bottom of the shoe, Chicago Sky. We had to jump through hoops of fire and do all types of abracadabra magic tricks to get her to finally score to break that record.
If you compare her stats in Indiana to her sudden surge in Phoenix, it's like looking at 2 completely different athletes. And that's exactly what happens when someone finally decides to try after months of coasting. It's manipulation, plain and simple. And it represents the worst kind of entitlement, using your professional platform to play games while the people who believed in you are left holding the bill. The most outrageous part? Bonner's now pretending like she gave it her all in Indiana. She's standing there acting like she didn't sandbag a franchise and let down a city. Meanwhile, Phoenix fans are celebrating as if she just came out of a slump, completely ignoring the fact that they're enjoying the spoils of someone else's betrayal. This isn't just about one game. It's about setting a dangerous standard that lets players dodge responsibility without consequences. And what makes it all sting even more is remembering how she first arrived in Indy, talking a big game and embracing the fan base like she was ready to be part of something special. She didn't start with complaints. She didn't drop hints about being unhappy. No, she played the part. She smiled for the cameras. She said all the right things.
Here's a quote from DeWanna Bonner. I have no problem coming off the bench. I have never been that player. I don't feel like I have that reputation. Now, fair enough. You have won 6th Woman of the Year, respectfully. But that don't mean that's what you thought you were walking into. I believe you thought you was coming here to be a veteran leader, an OG, and a starter. She came here as a starter, was stinking it up, got injured, and Lexi Hall stepped in, and Lexi Hall should have been the starter from day one. DeWanna Bonner should have never been a starter in an Indiana Fever uniform. That's a fact.
Bonner once praised the massive fan support in Indianapolis, marveling at how she had never experienced anything like it before. She seemed genuinely moved by the electric crowds, the sea of Fever jerseys, and the die-hard loyalty of Indiana's supporters. She spoke about how inspired she was to compete for a championship and how eager she was to mentor rising stars like Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston as they adjusted to the pro game. These weren't half-hearted media sound bites. These were full-throated endorsements of a city and a team that welcomed her with open arms and believed in her. And that's what makes this betrayal so personal for the fans. People bought her jersey. They shared her backstory on social media. They gave her the benefit of the doubt when her performance didn't match her paycheck. Indiana fans made excuses for her, saying she just needed time to build chemistry with her teammates. They posted highlight reels of her rare flashes of brilliance, called her the vet glue player, and hoped she'd soon deliver. To find out now that she was probably plotting her exit from the moment she signed that contract, it feels like an emotional con job. The support was real, but her commitment wasn't.
The way that Caitlin Clark wants to play, which of course is the way that the Fever plays, that she is their nucleus, they want to push the ball down the court. They want to be quick. They want to be fast moving. At 37 years old, that style of play might not fit DeWanna Bonner very well. Like, that just doesn't highlight her strength. So I think it's probably a combination of style of play reasons, personal reasons. And yeah, like you said, at this point, she probably wants to win basketball games, make a little bit of money in the process.
This wasn't some amicable breakup between player and team over strategic differences. This was a seasoned pro exploiting trust, soaking up the perks, and then bolting once she found a better fit. That's why the fan anger hasn't cooled off. This wasn't just a player switching teams. It was someone burning every bridge on her way out after knowingly violating the faith placed in her. In any other profession, you don't get to lie your way through a paycheck and then pretend it was all fair play. And what makes it more infuriating is the cone of silence from the Fever brass. They haven't said a word about how it all unraveled, which only fuels suspicion that this situation was mishandled from day one. It's not hard to imagine that coaching decisions, particularly by Stephanie White, may have played a role. Perhaps false assurances about playing time or leadership status that didn't hold up once real games began. But with neither side offering transparency, it's the fans left trying to make sense of a drama that should have never spiraled this far.
Well, Lexi Hall's success and continued success in the system with Caitlin from last year, I think was the big reason that DeWanna Bonner was moved to the bench at all and kind of trying to figure that out. When I went back through last week, just kind of like poring over all of these press conferences and like public comments and like my interviews that I had done in Indiana, the thing that stuck out to me was the first day, I think, of training camp, DeWanna Bonner had mentioned like she had to catch her breath because these guys are fast.
Yeah.
It looked like you was mad that Lexi Hall took the starting job.
If you connect the dots, Bonner's dissatisfaction seemed to grow right around the time Lexi Hall began stepping up and proving she deserved more minutes. That's when the storm clouds rolled in. If White had promised Bonner a starter's role and then had to backtrack when Hull outperformed her, that's on the coaching staff for poor planning and communication. The Fever's refusal to clarify what went down leaves them looking either like they lost control or like they're hiding something, neither of which bodes well for future free agent signings. And then there's Bonner's tone-deaf post-departure narrative, the one where she acts like being asked to come off the bench was some outrageous insult to her career. It's laughable when you realize she's literally won 6th Woman of the Year 3 times. That's an award built around thriving off the bench. And yet here she is now, suddenly acting like it was beneath her. It's a complete contradiction. And frankly, it stinks of someone trying to rewrite history to save face.
Trying to figure out, everything's changed. We add pieces, and pieces come back. Where you get your shots normally the game before, you probably won't get that same shot. And I'm just trying to figure out where you fit on this team, and it's going to take us a little bit of time to gel. So just be patient with us. We're going to be okay.
It's going to take us a little bit of time to gel. Just be patient. Oh, man. Bonner. But, man, it is crazy to hear her say that. It is crazy. I can't hold you. The fact that now she's more so of understanding it's going to take some time to find your footing. It's, you have to be patient. Man, that's tough, Bonner. That's tough. Coming from somebody that literally gave up You gave up on the Indiana Fever, man. You should have gave it some time, Bonner.
If coming off the bench wasn't a problem, then why did she vanish the moment her starting spot became shaky? Why did the mysterious personal reasons only emerge when the rotation shifted and she risked losing her status? It's not hard to connect the dots. She couldn't stomach the idea of playing second fiddle on a team that needed selfless veterans. Instead of proving her worth, she bailed. That's not professionalism. That's ego run wild. In reality, Bonner should have been the perfect off-the-bench spark, a veteran scorer who could mentor while still producing. But her actions painted a different picture. She didn't want to contribute, she wanted control. And when that slipped away, so did she. Now, she's spinning a tale where she's the misunderstood hero, hoping everyone forgets how she tanked her own value the moment things didn't revolve around her. The gaslighting is so blatant it's almost insulting. At this point in her career, Bonner should know better. Roles evolve, lineups change. That's just part of being a pro. But instead of adapting, she threw a fit. That speaks volumes about her character, and not in a good way. She treated her time in Indiana like a job she could walk away from whenever it stopped serving her, not a team that needed her commitment. And wouldn't you know it? The second she left, everything lined up perfectly for her personal life. The cherry on top? Her new team just so happens to be Phoenix, where her fiancé, Alyssa Thomas, is already playing. That's not coincidence. That's convenience. This wasn't about basketball fit or chasing a title. It was about proximity to her relationship. Her "everything happens for a reason" speech loses a lot of its magic once you realize the reason was her romantic agenda, not any deep professional purpose. And when you consider the timing of her trade demands and her pre-selected destination, it's painfully obvious that Indiana was always a temporary stopgap. She used the Fever for a salary cushion, then orchestrated her escape the moment she saw an opening. The Mercury's willingness to participate in that plan, rewarding someone who breached professional norms, sends the message that contracts are optional and ethics comes second to personal wants. Now Bonner and Thomas get to play together while Indiana eats the cap hit and the roster hole. That's not team building. That's manipulation disguised as a love story. But maybe the worst fallout from this entire Bonner disaster is what it says about Indiana's front office. They got worked. Let's call it what it is. They got outmaneuvered by a veteran player who knew exactly how to twist the system in her favor. The fact that she got away with it raises serious red flags about this team's ability to manage talent, enforce accountability, and establish a winning culture. When you're trying to build around generational players like Caitlin Clark, the last thing you need is a front office that gets punked by every diva with an agenda. Bonner exposed the lack of structure. She showed other players that, in Indiana, if you make enough noise, you can get out, no matter your contract, your commitment, or your impact. And that's not a reputation you want as a franchise. The front office should have gotten ahead of this mess, either nip it in the bud or control the narrative when it all fell apart. But instead, they stayed silent, letting speculation run wild. Now it's up to Kelly Krauskopf and Amber Cox to convince the next batch of free agents that Indiana is a professional, no-nonsense organization, even though everything about this situation screams the opposite. The trust has been broken, and rebuilding it won't be easy. Until Indiana shows it can enforce standards, hold players accountable, and prioritize the team over personalities, it'll remain vulnerable to being used by veterans who want the paycheck without the effort. The Bonner incident gave every disgruntled player a how-to guide for skipping town while cashing in. And that's not just a PR nightmare. It's an operational failure that threatens everything Indiana is trying to build. If this whole situation leaves you frustrated as the rest of us, drop a "Investigate Bonner" in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.